Hey everyone, welcome to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jen Amos, and today I have with me the CEO and co-founder of Tangible Solutions, Adam Clark. You can learn more about him and his company at tangiblesolutions3d.com. And again, that's Tangible Solutions, the number 3d.com. Adam, welcome to the show.
Awesome. This is great to be here. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I know that you mentioned that you typically work in your office for, I think, four days out of the week for about 10 hours at a time. And this is the one time of the week where you actually work from home.
That is correct. Yes, we started doing the 4 hour or the 4 day work week. It's 10 hour work day. It's manufacturing, so for us,
Mm,
getting everyone in on the same time, and it was interesting little social experiment because we were trying to figure out how can we be a little bit more efficient and how can we just kind of come together. I think when you start as an entrepreneur, you work all day long and you go,
true.
and then you start bringing employees in,
Mm,
and you cannot expect them to work with the same vigor all the way through.
yeah.
And we wanted to bring a little bit of balance because we make orthopedic implants, and that was a little bit about just kind of getting into manufacturing. And Friday has been like a wonderful day for the managers to just either work from home or come in, clean up, get ready for the next week, and kind of not shave, so things of
Yeah.
that nature,
Yeah, it's
so
kind
it's
of a
been
way
nice.
to just kind of come, what do you call it? Like just ease up from the week and
Yeah.
slow it down a little bit more. You're still working, but you're taking it a little bit easier and then setting yourself up for next week so you can just kind of check out for the weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, really clean things up. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, we'll talk about lessons learned, but balance, having a nice mental balance. Because there was a time where I was just burnt
Mm,
out. And the 4 day work week has allowed us, even though we're going, we're running and gunning all week long, because we start at 6, we end at 5. And, by the Wednesday afternoon, it feels like Thursday morning for sure. You can
mm.
tell it in the demeanor of everyone. So, try to bring some donuts in on Thursday or whatnot. But
Yeah.
if we have to do overtime, it's done on a Friday. It's not done on a weekend. People can still have that time to, be balanced and refreshed for when they come in on Monday morning.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so in a way, it sounds like maybe Tuesday is like hump day for everyone because like Thursday is the last day where they have to be in the office, and Thursday they're already feeling like it feels like a Friday to them
it
almost,
does.
is what
It
it sounds
it
like.
does. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's weird to hear like have a good weekend on a Thursday, but
That's
you know.
awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to dive into balance a little bit more later because I know that is
Hmm.
something that a lot of us can definitely learn. I thought I would just take the time to ask because you did mention that you do manufacturing and you do go into the office 4 days a week. As we know, 2020 is an interesting time in history, and so I'm curious, what has the new normal look like for you and your company, and has it really affected the way that you operate?
Oddly enough, not really. So we're a contract manufacturer of 3D printed titanium orthopedic implants,
Hmm.
super focused niche. So we were an essential business, and we kept operating. Obviously, bringing in some of the protective measures, mask, and we
Yeah.
clean up, and things are a little bit more organized. But for us, it really stayed the same. And being in orthopedics, looking at how they were impacted, they shut down all the elective surgeries. Elective surgeries eventually will become emergent. So surgeries were still happening, and the customers that we sell to obviously sell to hospitals and orthopedic surgeons themselves.
Hmm.
So we saw a bit of a slowdown, probably about April. April was probably our worst month, but
Mm.
overall, though, we're having a record year. People are because everyone started prepping because all those surgeries are going to have to be done anyway, and
Hmm.
so surgeons at the hospitals are working, two-day shifts, are staying in the hospitals, are continuously
Wow.
running, and so it's been nice. Everyone slowed down, and then as things started to free up, and though we don't have things clearly identified of what the future is going to look like,
Hmm.
everyone started to realize that hey, these hospitals are businesses. They need to stay open so they can
Yeah.
continuously serve the community. And part of that is driving revenue, getting surgeries going, and enabling them to come in. So they work through their nuances of being able to get back into the hospitals and making things work for themselves. And we just flew right under the radar with them. And I think being
Awesome.
a smaller business as well, we'll do about 3 million this year, and we have some growth that'll be happening next year for us.
Hmm.
But I think if we had been maybe a $20 million business, probably would have taken a larger hit.
Mm.
Um, just because the carrying cost of operating a $20 million organization is a lot heavier than what we're experiencing. And, it really makes you look at how you're practicing your financial cash flow, taking a look at things, how disciplined are you being? And I think it exposed a lot of businesses, especially when it came to the PPP, all the payment protection program.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed, everyone was like, oh, it's not getting to the businesses. And I have friends who own their own companies, but their accounting was shoebox accounting, throw the receipt in, end of the year, go to the accountant, whatnot.
Right.
But we took a practice about 2 years ago to just be Loctite on month to month, closing the month, having good financials, making sure everything was organized. So we were able to react very quickly. And I think if you're not practicing some of those disciplines that aren't necessarily what you sell, but it's part of your business, it can enable you to move a lot quicker when a pandemic hits. And you really have to open your eyes to say, all right, are we prepared for an economic downturn? Yes. But now everyone has to consider, well, now we have pandemics to consider as well.
Right.
I called our insurance agent. That was the one thing we were not covered for, was pandemics.
Oh,
I
no.
mean, who would have thought,
Right.
Many people weren't. So little business practices here and there. But again, as a smaller business, we were never used to getting on a plane and going to see customers, going to trade shows, but once or twice a year. Just budget didn't really allow, being a smaller business. So if anything, it allowed us to practice what we did best even more, because a lot of our competitors were more established in the field and had the marketing budgets to go to these trade shows, and they counted on those trade shows where we were already doing video conference calls, and that was just a thing we had to do because we were small. And there was a point when I was running parts at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and then making sales calls, doing both. I don't have to do that now. We've worked ourselves into that luxury, but I think it exposed a lot of bad business practices for a lot of people, for us as well, to just kind of dial in and say, hey, these are things that we are doing that we need to maybe shore up and make sure, we're tight on our cash, and, watching every penny where it goes, kind of getting back down into the weeds. Anytime you hit a crisis, you start to look at the receipts again. What did we spend our money on last month? And did we really need, those 3 extra microphones or monitors or fancy keyboards, things of that nature? Because it makes a difference. And
it's true.
And it's a cultural thing too. If you're asking about that $10 bill, employees are going to question, well, hey, if I spend this, they're going to ask me about it. And why? I better have a good justification. And but it's also by example too. I don't, my desk is right in the middle of the floor, and everyone can see what I do. They can see what my desk looks like. They can see I don't have all the fancy tools and this and that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to ramble. So you got to stop me if I start.
No,
rambling.
you're doing great. I really appreciate what you're sharing. This is an interesting time. I was just thinking in my head, I think maybe there was a lot of businesses that were like, fake it till you make it. And then the pandemic really kind of showed their true colors and showed that they're really a house of cards. It's like, hey, you look really pretty and shiny on the outside, but you paid way too much for that because no one can go to your store anymore, or,
Absolutely.
it's like, and it reminds me of someone I was talking to who is in the oil industry, and his company is actually doing just fine because, just like what you said, they took care of the little things, like the things I think that a lot of businesses tend to neglect or overlook because maybe they're trying to spend more than they should, or making those impulse purchases and everything. And so no, I don't think you're rambling at all, and I think that a lot of business owners are really reevaluating the way that they've been running their business this whole time, or trying to pivot really at this point. And it sounds, obviously you're an essential business, so you didn't really have to worry too much about like having to pivot so much, but it's either way, you did set your business up for success for a time like this, and taking care of the accounting end ahead of time.
Yeah, and those are the things that you really don't want to do. I don't love accounting. What I love, what I love is manufacturing, and I love being on the sales side of things and working with customers. And I think early, as you get into it, it's a balance between, all right, finding that time when you need to outsource and bring someone in to do that, to do those little things so you can focus. But there's also a time when you just need to suck it up and do it yourself, and become an expert at it so you can effectively communicate to someone you're paying to really maximize their ability and to set them up for success as well. Because those little things will trip you up as you are moving forward. You are looking at your vision and where you're walking towards. It's all the little things that will say, nope, you got to stop and come back and fix this. You now have to turn around from where you were headed, slow down, come back, fix it, and then walk it forward. So you're kind of rewalking those same paths. And I've certainly done that myself, where just little mistakes, customer mistakes, paperwork, attention to detail. You know, it's really hard to manage that, but I think that's what makes successful entrepreneurs successful, is just the devil is in the details at all times. So
yeah, I really appreciate you sharing kind of this key advice on how to have a sustainable business. Like, now that you've been almost, from what I have here in our notes, about a decade into this business. Let's go back a little bit and talk about before you started, because I have here in my notes that you actually started out of your garage. So tell us, like, what were the early stages of that, you know, before you started business? How did you get into it? How did you get into orthopedic implants?
Yeah, so it is a funny story. So I was a Green Beret before, and I got out and I started working at a defense company, just doing some program management. That's where I met my business partner. And then we just started working alpha hours, and there was actually a spare room that my manager at the time let me have to make cold calls during lunch. He's like, you can have 45 minutes a day to make phone calls.
Okay.
And so I would go back in there and made some phone calls, and because the company was downsizing, and they were kind enough to let us know and allow people to plan and whatnot. So we kind of were set up in that way. But, you know, I got out the Ranger Handbook, and we didn't know what business planning was. So we used the Ranger Handbook, and was like, okay, you know, and we used that, you know, how did we mission plan in the Army, and kind of brought that. And we pulled out a map of Dayton, Ohio, which is where we are. We started plotting where all the manufacturing companies were. Because at first we were servicing everybody. We were 3D printing anything for anybody. And, you know, as we went door to door, started getting the word out there, trying to get into speaking engagement, trying to be, you know, preaching the gospel of additive manufacturing. And while we were doing that, we started getting into, or not getting into, but we had more medical folks start to come, and the request came, hey, can you print this? Can you do that? And we found an opportunity. A lot of our competitors were going into aerospace, and we found this kind of blue water area that no one was servicing in 3D printed orthopedics. We started working with some spine companies, and as we were growing, we were still holding on to this base of customers that were not medical. And I remember coming down the stairs one day, because we have like an upstairs. I was walking downstairs, and one of our plastic machines was down. We had 3 people standing around them, but we had 5 metal printers with titanium orthopedic implants that were really expensive, and we can bill for it, but we got to move them. And we were messing around with this small plastic printer. And I started to question, what is our focus? What are we doing? And we had a board member too start to be, really question our identity of what did we want to be. And we really settled on orthopedics. We're like, all right, we're going to fire every other customer. And we had about 300 customers at the time.
Wow. Okay.
And small guys to big guys.
Yeah. Still a big decision though, 300 customers. Yeah.
Yeah. I was scared. I had to write out a definition of what our customer was and paste it everywhere for myself. There's tons of little shiny things that are out there, opportunities, especially when you really need revenue,
Absolutely.
you need to pay the bills. But you don't want to be distracted because it comes at its own cost. And we decided to become a 3D contract manufacturer, 3D printed titanium orthopedic implants. And that was it. Wow. And we pushed everyone else aside and just really focused on that. And I'll tell you, that was the scariest but best decision we ever did. And probably the biggest lesson that I would give to any entrepreneur is to absolutely, at no matter, all costs, focus. Focus. Because what it allowed us to do is start to recruit from the orthopedic industry, start to understand the workflow of the orthopedic industry. That's already a ton of knowledge right there just to try to capture, working in aerospace, working in consumers, working in, different regulatory requirements, things of that nature. And we were able to really hone in, and kind of the ripple effect from that was that we became experts in our field. So 3D printed orthopedics is a new concept. It's in its infancy. I mean, they've been doing it for about 10 years, but in reality, it's still rather new.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of questions. We were calling the FDA, trying to figure out, taking the questions our customers were giving us, and then going back and clarifying and becoming experts, and then communicating that back to our customer base. It really made us a valuable partner in their endeavor to launch a new product out into the field. And we've been able to sustain some long-term relationships because of that. And organize our business in such a way where we look at the year and we know, hey, we're going to be heavy in this quarter, we're going to be heavy in that quarter. Position the business to be experts in what we do. And we only deal with titanium, which has, 3D printing titanium has its own nuances that you have to understand as well. The fixturing, all the downstream operations, it just is all wrapped around this idea of orthopedics. And so, the passion to people who have a passion for orthopedics and who understand the market. And I think that's been our biggest differentiator is, you think when you like develop a niche, you're like, well, I'm going to be eliminating all this other opportunity.
Right.
And perhaps there's an argument, but however, you're also allowing yourself to focus and pour all that energy and resources into that one thing and be the best at it. And when you become the best at it, or, I know I'm drinking my own tea or, my own Kool-Aid here, but we've gotten really good at this and we can pivot really well. And all the customers are the same. They're bringing us the same problems. They're bringing us the same products in a way, it's all spinal implants or hip or knee, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of built this, knowledge base to really service them and get products cleared, and no problem is something we haven't seen or things like that. I mean, we still see new problems, but it really allows you to just, every time you learn something, it's applicable to your entire customer base.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's definitely been our, the best decision we ever made was to get rid of all those other customers and to focus on big ticket items. It's like that classic, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. And,
right.
I'll just never forget seeing all these people around a silly plastic printer that was malfunctioning and then having 5, metal printers with product that's ready to move, not moving because we're messing around with this little printer over here. So,
yeah.
But yeah, we saw like that day, we went to Waffle House, talked to my business partner, like we really got to focus. Mm-hmm. And then we wrote the definition because there were still little shiny little objects. Because even I'd be like, hey, this one thing, it came in.
Right.
We'd literally look to the definition and be like, the first question was, is it medical?
Right.
No.
I think that
we're not doing
a lot of people may underestimate the power of focusing and niching down. I think they do. They think like, oh, there's going to be less customers, there's going to be less like whatever. But in reality, it's like you really become an expert in that particular field, in that particular community of people or clientele or industry and what have you. And so I really like that you pressed upon that. And that was a big risk that you took early on. I mean, at the time, sure, I think any business would be happy to have 300 clients in that capacity. But for you to be like, okay, I gotta paste my niche. I gotta have my avatar like written out and in front of me everywhere to remind myself why I'm taking this leap of faith. And so, I just want to, kudos to you, for taking that risk. And obviously here you are almost a decade in practically, being very successful and continuing to grow and, continuing to flourish because as an essential business, like you still have to be around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, business it is about relationships, especially when you're growing up and trying to mature the business. You build these relationships with people, and if you can constantly nurture those relationships, they're going to come back, because now our relationships are not necessarily utilitarian in nature where we're just conducting business back and forth. Right. I mean, there's like a real genuine connection that I've been able to create with these people that, learn about their families. Where are they from? What makes them tick in the off hours? What passions do they have from a personal standpoint? And not that you leverage that facetiously in a way, but it is something that can be leveraged, these relationships, because you're going to have crap go wrong.
Right.
And if you can't pick up that phone and have like a genuine connection with that person, admit to your failures or, hey, you guys messed up, you sent the wrong thing, you don't want to put blame on your customers, but you want to have empathy for them.
Absolutely.
And if you can do that, that reoccurring revenue gets a little easier, and you're able to kind of be a little bit more profitable as well at the same time and it allows you to not freak out like, I need more customers now. Just calm down. If someone says they're not ready, it's okay. They'll come back around. Just be the expert. Just be the expert, that someone they can rely on and call and know that they're going to get a straight answer about what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, no, definitely. Adam, you are so full of wisdom. Obviously, you have learned a lot and gone through a lot with your business. Before we go, I do have one more question to ask, and it's really just talking more about the entrepreneurial side for our small business owners and entrepreneurs listening to the show, and that's about balance. We talked
Hmm.
about a little bit about at the beginning, and I think for a lot of us, it's very easy. And I think about my husband and myself as well when we work on our projects. We don't set hours. Like I work a lot. I work slow, but I work a lot because it's like, especially in the
Hmm.
pandemic, it's like, what else am I going to do? And so,
Right.
let's talk a little bit about balance and how you have been able to master that. And also how, I mean, obviously I'm sure it's still a work in progress, but also
Sure.
how your employees in a way were kind of the catalyst for you to start setting, those boundaries and setting hours.
Yeah, you don't want to lose excitement in
Mm-hmm.
the culture, and I could feel myself being burnt out. And one of my employees actually, we have a gym at the shop, and we were working out, and I was just feeling it. And he was like, "Man, if you go down, the whole company's going to go down." He's like, "They're going
Oh,
to follow you." And
right.
I was like,
Mm-hmm.
like it was very humbling. It was like I don't know. You don't really look at yourself as like the guy, even
Mm-hmm.
though I am like I'm the CEO. They are going to follow me, but they're going to do what I say. They're going to do what I'm doing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I really needed to take time, kind of set some hours at the shop, make sure I'm getting home at a reasonable time and I'm not just like burning all the way through and adjusting the schedule. Like it's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to
Right.
sit down and it's okay to think. you know I cannot attest more to like lifting. I mean, I ballooned up to like 260 or something like that. And just eating, those habits outside of work, how
Mm-hmm.
you fuel yourself mentally, spiritually, making
Mm-hmm.
sure your personal finances are at home, taking care of yourself from a
Mm-hmm.
financial standpoint. I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs struggle
Right.
because the business starts to do well, but they're like, no, I need that cash because I have to do XYZ, or I
Mm-hmm.
got to get this piece of equipment. If you don't take care of your personal finances and kind of enjoy the fruits of your own labor a little bit, it's going to tax on you because you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to kind of like when I first started actually realizing that like I need to probably pay myself a little more. Once
Right.
I was able to get that and I was able to do things for my kids and take them to the zoo and not be like, oh my God, I have no money.
Right. Right.
Things like that, you take that stress off, it allows you to get like more excited about the business because you're like, oh man, I can enjoy this even more. Like it starts to like that day comes when you're like, yes, I can enjoy this. I can pay myself. I want to pay myself. I want to pay my
Mm-hmm.
employees.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. And I think fitness and eating right, limiting your drinking and just knowing your priorities and during the week, I think people undervalue that. And I think time to think,
Mm.
being quiet, getting some alone time, not just like about the business, but like how like is the business working for you?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
business is not what you do, but it's not the main thing of life, but it's what you're doing to propel your life. And I
Mhm.
think kind of having that, that thought and that time to be able to think about and ponder, or just be silent for a minute and allowing yourself to kind of like think bigger, because you go day to day, you're in the weeds so much, you really have to pull yourself out and look abroad, like how am I doing everywhere,
Mhm.
and kind of checking the boxes just to make sure, and continuously educating yourself, listening to books on tape. And I think once you've lost passion in the business and you're so burnt out, the business is going to feel it and everyone else is going to feel it because you're not going to have that energy. It's like when I get
Yeah.
in the morning, it's like techno music and it's like, like we're
Love
just
it.
like we're having a good time. And if you can't bring that energy, you got to check yourself and say, how can I bring that energy?
Yeah.
Because my employees are counting on me to bring the energy. Some days I feel like I haven't done anything except walk around the shop and just check in with people.
There you
I sit
go.
down at my desk. I'm like, what did I do today? But what did I do today was check in with all my employees, make sure everyone's doing well, having genuine conversation, not just checking a box, but like
Right,
literally,
right.
how are you doing?
Exactly.
How was that birthday party of your grandson or something like that? And being mindful of that, I think is very important because what's cool is we did put that gym in, and now we have a Slack channel that's like the Iron Eating group, and we talk about weightlifting, we talk about running, or who's doing what program or what new diet fad is out there, things like
Mhm.
that. So it's like allowed us to have something that's not just work to connect on.
Right,
And
right.
people like, I mean, some of the people have lost some serious weight and they look good, and they're excited, and we're in orthopedics too. So we want to make sure we're setting an example
Absolutely.
of what we want to look at. And because I remember went to my first orthopedic show, and I just felt like, man, I am not just physically feeling the way I want to feel, you know?
Awesome.
And
so
I was just kind of frumpy and wearing that old shirt, you know, like, and I just thought, you know, I gotta, like, if I want to be treated like a CEO or a successful business owner, I got to act like one. I got to look like one. And, you know, no one can wear sweatpants at the shop anymore. Things like that. You got to elevate your game a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, awesome. Well, Adam, obviously we can go on forever with just all the words of wisdom that you have shared today. Unfortunately, with all good things, they eventually do have to come to an end. So again, thank you so much for being on our show today. I know that our listeners will really benefit from this. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. So thank you so much for your time, Adam.
I really appreciate you having me on. Best of luck to you. Keep rocking it. And yeah, we'll be checking you out as well.
Thank you. And again, this is Adam Clark, the CEO and co-founder of Tangible Solutions. If you want to learn more about him and his company, check out tangiblesolutions3d.com. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us, and tune in next time.